What set Redmond on his journey happened in March of 1876. He knew there was a warrant out for his arrest, and on a mountain trail, he met a group including a federal marshal.
Trailhand Bill, reporting live from South Florida. I have a question, guys. Have you ever heard of Lewis Redmond, 1876, Carolina, illegal moonshiner? Let some folk tell it. You ever heard of homie? What about Alfred Duckworth? I think that, and I'm about to say something very controversial. You can stay until the end or skip to it now to see what I'm about to say, but I think good white people have the same problem as good women. You have more of an allegiance to your race and people groups than you do to the integrity that God has placed in your heart. Rest in peace, Sonya Massey.
We have breaking news in the Sean Grayson murder trial. There is a verdict.
The former Sangamon County Sheriff's deputy has been found guilty of second-degree murder. It took the jury almost 11 hours of deliberations to come to the decision in the shooting death of Sonya Massey. Our Brandon Morano is live at the courthouse in Peoria. Brandon, give us the very latest.
So, like you said, Sean Grayson has been found guilty of second-degree murder, not guilty on first-degree murder. Sentencing has been scheduled for January 29th in Sangamon County. Now, I want to tell you about Grayson's family and Massey's family entering the courtroom as before the verdict was read, rather. Grayson's family could be seen praying and almost hyperventilating in the courtroom before the verdict was read. Massey's family could be seen with tears streaming down their faces and holding hands before the verdict was read. Now, this morning, the jury finished deliberations after more than 11 hours, really. I was in the courtroom at 9 a.m. when the jurors addressed the room and explained deliberations were continuing. Ultimately, they had to decide if Grayson was justified or not in the shooting death of Massey. It happened in July of 2024 when she called for help regarding a prowler. Now, you may remember Grayson was initially charged with first-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, and official misconduct. At the start of the trial, the judge dismissed the last two, leaving only 3 counts of first-degree murder. Then the option of second-degree murder was introduced by the defense. That's ultimately what the jury decided on. We're going to have a lot more updates and a press conference from Sonya Massey's family coming up momentarily right here in front of the courthouse. Jennifer.
Brandon, question. You talked about the emotions that you were seeing before the verdict was read. I want to start with, what were you observing when the verdict came down? What was Sean Grayson's reaction to that?
So Sean Grayson was sitting very still, very quiet on the defense table, seated next to his defense attorneys, Mark Wyckoff and Daniel Foltz. He was sitting quietly when the verdict was read, did not move, did not jump, didn't really react to it. His family, rather, after it was read, it could be heard sobbing right behind us. We were sitting right in front of them. Massey's family could be seen putting their heads in their hands and consoling each other. So that was really the emotions that we're going through. Very strong emotions on both sides, of this case. This has been a week long of trial and more than 11 hours of jury deliberation. So very emotional for everybody involved here. And before we came in, the court security officer, addressed the families, addressed the media, and said, this is going to be hard for everyone, and kind of got everyone ready before we entered that courtroom. Jennifer.
There is heavy security outside of that Peoria County Courthouse. We were seeing before, there are snipers on the roofs of buildings out there, a lot of police. Protesters have been out there for days. What is the feeling that you're getting from them now that there's a verdict?
So the protesters were actually out here on the courthouse steps with a megaphone when we came out. They were saying, things like not guilty was not read, and that he has been found guilty. It is second degree, but that Grayson has been found guilty there. And right now they're back on the corner. They've been averaging about 20 to 25 a day out here, and I'd say that's probably where the numbers are right now as well. But right now we're just waiting for the Massey family and members of the defense and prosecution to come out and give statements.
All right, Brandon, thank you so much. And as he said, the Massey family will be holding a news conference shortly, and we will bring you that live when that happens.
Testimony continues in the murder trial of the former Illinois deputy accused of killing Sonia Massey in her home last year. Sean Grayson took the stand in his own defense this morning, and he recalled the night of the shooting, stating he believed Massey was threatening to throw a pot of boiling water on him. So prosecutors asked Grayson about his account of the shooting, which was written several days after Massey was killed. Grayson's partner the night of the shooting already testified last week, saying he was not afraid of Massey. Instead, he was afraid of Grayson. Grayson faces a maximum of life in prison for 3 counts of first-degree murder. Anna Schechter, senior coordinating producer with CBS News Crime and Public Safety Unit, joining us live now. Anna, how shocking was it that Grayson actually took the stand?
Well, I was really surprised this morning. We thought maybe he might, just to give his state of mind, but then boom, 9:05 a.m. he sat in that chair, and we were all, who have been following this case so closely, just really shocked. Wow, Sean Grayson himself is on the stand right now testifying after all of these witnesses have been explaining that Sonia Massey was actually not a threat. So this was a very big moment for those of us who have been following this case now for more than a year.
So Grayson said he used his gun rather than a taser because it would have been ineffective during the incident. So a use of force expert also testified that Grayson's decision was justified. So talk about that part of the testimony.
Sure, it's a great question because this was actually new information. We know from the reports filed right after, or in the month after this event, that he said he felt threatened by that boiling pot of water. But we never knew he was even considering or thought about potentially using a taser instead of a gun. He was asked this question on the stand today, and he said that he was worried that a taser wouldn't work because a taser has to go through clothing and actually clutch onto the skin, essentially. That's how it works. And that he says that he actually took the time to think that through and realized the taser wouldn't work and instead used a gun. So we'll see how a jury reacts to that, if they believe that. But that jumped out at me today because I've never seen any discussion of a taser being used. But yes, you're absolutely right that the defense did call a use of force expert to the stand who said that Grayson was acting in self-defense and de-escalating the situation by firing that firearm because of that pot of boiling water. That was his take, and the defense is leaning heavily into that. That is essentially their entire defense.
Anna Schechter. Anna, thank you.
I got some OG viewers on my channel, man. Some of y'all been around a long time. Big Dog, Steve, Gary, Bree, Sin City. I'm trying to think of some more people, man. Forgive me if I'm missing y'all. Some people have been around for a long time and they pop in and out, and some people have been around for a long time and they never out. They always in. Whether they watch their video or not, they still in. And I'm saying that because some of you, if you think hard enough, will recall one of my first lives I did where I was surrounded by gangs of Johnnies from different departments down here in South Florida. It was at a library and the video quality was horrible. I won't get into why. That happened because people kept in the audience, in the viewership, asking me about Sonia Massey, a case that I intentionally stayed away from because I knew what it was going to do to my spirit and what it could possibly turn into if I approached any police officers about it. And I'm not saying I was peer pressured. I absolutely made a decision myself, but at the same time I wasn't wrong because I approached an officer in the library and simply asked him about it. He was working security duty, and it turned into me being surrounded by about 15 police officers from 3 or 4 different departments down here in South Florida. I have already said I am Trailhand Bill, reporting live from South Florida. I want to give you guys some context, settle in. This may be a little longer than the average video that I do. Sean Grayson's jury was comprised of 12 people, 9 white women, 2 white men, and 1 black man. 3 alternate jurors were also 2 white men. Instead of first-degree murder, the jury found him guilty of second-degree murder, and in Illinois, first-degree murder involves intentional killing or causing great bodily harm, and I think his penalty could have been life imprisonment. I'm not sure, don't quote me there. Second-degree murder is still intentional, but occurs under sudden and intense passion from serious provocation or when the killer has an unreasonable belief that the killing was justified. Essentially, second-degree murder is first-degree murder with a mitigating factor that lessens the severity. Basically, they try and say first-degree murder, and I'm not acting like anybody's ignorant here. I'm more so doing this for me. You ain't have no damn business doing that, fam. You can't explain it. Second-degree murder, all right, it might have been a reason. We're going to talk about Mr. Lewis Redmond from South Carolina. Had a very pivotal experience in 1876, March the 1st, with a deputy by the name of Alfred Duckworth. We're going to talk about that before I get out of here, Lord willing. First, let me give you thoughts about this Sonya Massey case. Again, I say rest in peace to her. She called, I mean, damn. Talk about summoning your death. I just covered a video where a gentleman I felt like put himself in a position to be murdered by a cop, and that's what the killer did. He murdered the man. She summoned her death. Now, I'm not in any way what modern people call victim blaming Sonya Massey here. I am saying what many police watchers, auditors tell Americans, man. You got to know who these cowards are. And you have to stop giving them more access than you're legally required to. She called them because she had an issue that these domestic terrorist oath takers had taken an oath to deal with, and unfortunately she bought into that propaganda, and it literally cost her her damn life. She called them, invited them into her home under the pretense of them being protectors, and they murdered her. This man's coward-ass partner, who should be on trial somewhere, already convicted or already have pled guilty to these charges, said he was scared of homie. But are there any reports that he arrested him? Why were you afraid of him? You were afraid he was about to do something violently criminal? He did. Are there any reports that you arrested him? I don't know. I'm asking because I didn't follow this case. I didn't want to get my ass into what I got into at that library that day. Americans deliberated for 11 hours and found this man not guilty of intentional murder. I heard reports that he told her, I would shoot you in your face. I don't know if this is true. That's why I have to phrase it like that, because I don't make up things to fit my point. I'm trying to be very intentional about what I'm saying. But after 11 hours, so was there a predetermined decision? And because they didn't want to further agitate the American public, we hear that protesters was already outside consistently. They just pretended to take 11 hours. Was that just fabricated waiting, or did they actually go back and forth for 11 hours trying to figure out what to decide? You know, in a lot of these cases, jurors do books and tell-alls and interviews later, and they tell what was going on in the deliberation chamber. So maybe we'll get the answer to those questions. Snipers ready to murder non-threatening Americans on the roof. Snipers. These folks outside probably doing nothing but walking around holding picket signs. And the American government already has armed murderers on roofs aiming guns at them. And we all know at the slightest provocation, nature occurring, acorns falling from trees, a misfire from somebody's mufflers on the car, any one or all of those damn armed domestic terrorist murderers would have shot their damn weapons, aiming to kill, and then hid under the umbrella of fearing for their safety from 1 billion miles away in qualified immunity. I want to go back to how this should have and could have been prevented, and the information that we need to lovingly find ways to share with our loved ones and our peers and our colleagues. If you are in a situation where you have to encounter and engage these cowards, if you have to call them for the service that you pay them for, man, make sure you are at all times, from the moment you summon them, 1,000,000% in control of that situation. I don't know, and I ain't finna look at it to find out, because it's just gonna further infuriate me. But I don't know what led to her calling them. I know what the reports say. I don't know what led to her actions in that house. I don't know what led to her calling them and then allowing them into her house. I don't know none of that. But I feel like I know if she would have known who these cowards are, she would have handled that situation a lot differently, very probably still being alive. 2nd-degree murder, my ass, we all know what that should have been. And now he's in a position where a judge can just let his ass go home with probation. I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to address that point I made at the beginning of the video. I think good white people have the same problem good women do. You show more of an allegiance to your race and people groups than the integrity that God has placed in your hearts. Mr. Lewis Redmond, a South Carolina moonshiner, white as all get out. The government had a problem because these folk were making these damn moonshine and they wasn't giving them no money off the top. So the government got to get their cut. They sent a marshal out to arrest some people, serve warrants, dig in people's business or whatever. I don't know. The report that the government put out say he had a warrant. The report that Americans put out say he didn't. So when he tried to arrest Mr. Lewis Redmond, Mr. Redmond said, ain't no way in hell I'm going for it. A gunfight ensued and the marshal ended up damn dead. He killed a marshal because the marshal came out there trying to violate his rights and unlawfully arrest him. He stood up for his human and American rights like he had a damn right to. He defended himself and the marshal ended up dead. First thing I want to tell you, he went to prison years later. He did, I think, about 3 years in prison, and he was pardoned by an American president, if the reports are correct. I didn't write any of this. I wasn't there. White as all get out, white man. Second thing I want to tell you is he was never charged or tried for that murder, and folklore says it's because by the time he was finally arrested, Americans were on his damn side. They had gotten tired of the government terrorizing them, Americans, us, our ancestors, especially you white folk, these white folk, but we all Americans, so these are, maybe not ancestors is the word I'm looking for, but the heritage and the lineage that we come from as Americans. These people at a point in time, they got tired of the government terrorizing them. And he led the charge by defending himself, and a Johnny died in the process. I think today we have gotten to the point where not only are we afraid to defend ourselves, which many of us already know, many good white folk who don't act nothing like these Johnnies, instead of calling them out, they would look at the fact that they share the same race, culture, and all that bullshit and begin to make excuses for their actions. Forget all that, big dog. We're going with the integrity that God has placed in our heart. We're standing with right when it's right, and we're standing against wrong when it's wrong, no matter who's right and no matter who's wrong. God didn't place that in our hearts for no reason. God didn't place virtue in our hearts for no reason. And that is the only thing that separates people from people. Some have virtue that they choose to be led by, and some don't. And I think all of us need to learn from Mr. Redmond. I don't advocate senseless violence, but I do advocate our human right, God-given rights to protect ourselves, and I advocate our American rights to do the same. And whoever has to be harmed in that process because they're coming to violate what God has given us and what our rights in America is, well, hey, that's what they have summoned to themselves. Very unfortunately. Know your rights. Teach your children to know their rights. Encourage your loved ones to do the same. I pray for the Massey family because I agree with them. This was not justice at all, as is too often the case. Y'all be good.
When the marshal tried to arrest Redmond without the warrant, a gunfight broke out. Redmond shot and killed the marshal. He fled to the only safe place he knew, the mountains.
Thank you if you made it this far. If you like the video, feel free to hit that thumbs up button. I greatly appreciate it. If you care to go a little further than that, maybe even subscribe, hit the notification bell. Check out a few of the other videos on the channel. Either way, y'all be safe.